I'm done. I've been gardening the same way for 35 years, and I'm just not going to do it again. This year, I'm shaking things up. Join me as I discuss my new plan for gardening. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and I love gardening. I don't want to stop gardening. I love the planning, I love the planting, the growing, the harvesting, but after 35 years, it's all pretty much the same. And in recent years, what I've recognized is what I probably like most is trying new things, experimenting, pushing the limits. And this year, I'm going to do exactly that with everything I grow. For years, I've been talking about black Krim tomatoes, how they're my favorite, and I grow them every year. But not this year. The last couple years, I've highlighted black cherry tomatoes, a wonderful discovery that did great for me. I'm not growing black cherry tomatoes this year. For decades, I've grown Marketmore cucumbers. Not this year. This year, I'm not growing anything that I've ever grown before. I've determined that I'm in a gardening rut, doing the same things every year, the same plants grown the same ways, producing the same results. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a big reason why many of us garden, to find those plants that do well in our garden and then to keep growing them over and over because we know they'll be successful. My new greenhouse gives me a lot of opportunities. And last year, what did I grow? Tomatoes. They did great. The black cherries. But I also grew super hot chili peppers. I didn't even know what I was going to do with them, but I grew and harvested some wonderful fruit. Incredibly hot. And that excitement of trying something new without even knowing what the results would be really brought back the inner joy of gardening that I've enjoyed so much over so many years. And that's why this growing season, I want to find that feeling again with all new plants that may or may not work for me in the garden. But that's where the enjoyment and that's where the excitement is going to come in. Trying something new and then waiting to see what happens. This year, as I look through my seed catalogs, I'm avoiding the usual suspects, the same old plants. Instead, what I'm looking for is something that shouts out to me, that screams, "Try me in your garden," like this dragon carrot. It's a beautiful red-purple exterior with a striking contrast to its yellow-orange interior and light yellow core. I discovered the dragon carrot in the Seed Savers Exchange catalog, and it intrigues me because they describe it as a sweet, slightly spicy carrot. I've never grown a spicy carrot before. I also found it in the Southern Exposure Seed Exchange catalog, and they have it as a wild spicy flavor. Now, I've always grown carrots because of their sweet flavor, the Danvers and the Scarlet Nantes. They've done well in my garden, but to grow something like this that looks different and tastes different, I've never done that before. This year is the year. I like the sound of this Arkansas little leaf cucumber that can have compact vines but will still climb a trellis. Small leaves make finding the fruit easier. That's always nice because cucumbers tend to hide among the leaves. But the fruit is good for both slicing and pickling. I usually grow separate varieties for each. And I find this part particularly interesting. It has a lot of disease resistance, but they point out here at Southern Exposure that this variety may have lost its downy mildew resistance. And so that allows me the opportunity for a little experimentation. That's what I like to do, to see if this little Arkansas has the downy mildew resistance in my garden. Because almost every year by the end of the season, my cucumbers start getting that powdery mildew. This could be one of those varieties that not only provides the double bang of both slicing and pickling, but it could fight off some of the few diseases I have in my Colorado garden. Now, I recognize that this way of choosing the seeds for the varieties that I'm going to grow is not for every gardener. And I don't think I would recommend it for every gardener. I've only gardened this way once, in the very beginning. The very first year I gardened all those decades ago, I grew varieties that I had never grown before. And over the course of the years, I found what works best. I found the varieties that I like and could give me that double bang. But in the process, it got a little boring, quite honestly, because each year looked pretty close to the year before. And I like that excitement of the new, what's happening in my garden that's never happened before. So I did it that one time. Why not do it again all these years later? You can follow along and try the same thing. New plants. You don't have to do your entire garden like I'm planning to do, but stretch it a little bit. Do something that you just haven't tried before. And as you look through the catalog, and I dog-ear the pages of some of these things that are particularly interesting, I come across some things like this melon, for instance, that I think I'm gonna try, even though melons don't do well in my Colorado region. This is a Kansas melon. And since Kansas is the state right next to me, I'm operating under an assumption that if it grows in Kansas, it can grow in Colorado. It's a 90-day variety, which fits with the length of my growing season. It's got sweet flavor, fine texture, high production, and hardiness. I'm not sure what that means, whether it's hardy in my cool spring and fall or hardy in my hot summer, but it's worth a try to find out. I'm not going to throw out the basic rules of seed selection this year as I try everything new. I still need to choose the seeds that will fit within the length of my growing season. And I want to choose varieties that are part of my diet, or maybe something that could become part of my diet. I don't have to be completely out there trying things that I know won't work. I still want to have a successful garden with plants that should work in my garden and to match why I garden. One of the reasons I garden is to preserve my harvest. And I've talked in some of my Monday live stream shows that I want to grow Hungarian peppers and make my own paprika. Well, right here are Hungarian peppers. So I've added this to my list. It's not a crazy plant. It's not entirely new, but it's a variety that I haven't grown before, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. It just never fit with my current plan. I also like to make jams and jellies, so I'm looking at this Draht's yellow ground cherry. Now, I've tried growing the Aunt Molly's ground cherry without much success, but this Draht's sounds pretty good. It's got a 55-day from transplant to fruit. It's got a sweet, fruity flavor that sets it apart from ground cherries. And the plant is highly productive, which sounds like this might be ideal for growing plants and making ground cherry jam at the end of the season. Something that I've never grown, and something that I've never done, and something I've never even tasted. But it's worth a try. This year I had a fantastic gooseberry harvest, and I made gooseberry jam. It was good. It was different. It was a flavor I'd never tried before, and it gave me that excitement. I put those gooseberry bushes in the ground 3 years ago. It took 3 years for me to taste a gooseberry for the first time and to make a very unique jam. And I enjoyed that a lot, which is why I'm continuing to look through the catalogs and find what's going to be the best choice for me. I'm not going into this completely solo. I like it when I see something like this from Seed Savers Exchange, where they highlight a staff favorite. This velvet red tomato falls into that category, and it was the winner of one of their annual tomato tastings. And so when an organization like Seed Savers Exchange, who I respect and admire, suggests a particular variety, it sounds good to me, especially when it has won a taste contest. I like having people recommend to me something that they like. That's how I discovered the black cherry tomato. I would love it if you would give me your recommendations in the comments below. If there's something that is a little bit unique, outside the mainstream that you've grown, tell me about it. And tell me why I should be considering it in my garden. Because this is a blank slate. This is my entire garden, and I've got a pretty big garden, and I don't know yet everything that will be growing in it. I've made some highlights. I've put the star next to some of the varieties that I think I'm interested in, but I haven't finalized my list. And I've got catalogs and more on the way. And when I finalize it, I'd love it to be what I want to try because it's an interesting carrot or ground cherry, or because an organization like Seed Savers Exchange suggested it, or even better yet, because you suggested it for me as well. And I'll definitely give you credit if I choose a variety that I've picked from the comments below. I'm looking forward to this new way to plan my garden. By this time of year, I usually have a pretty good idea of how many tomatoes I'm going to grow and how many cucumbers I'm going to grow and which squashes I'm going to grow. But I've thrown all of that out the window. I really don't know everything that'll be in my garden this year. I may only have that single tomato plant. I may have 12. I don't know yet. It's going to come down to what I choose from the catalogs, what you suggest to me, and then I'll sit down and figure out what goes into all of my beds and how many different plants I'm going to grow. Of course, I'll bring you along on that journey, and you can expect future videos as I highlight some of these new varieties for me that I've never grown before. And hopefully you'll see the excitement as I discover the new things that work, but also maybe the things that don't work. It's all part of the gardening journey. It's all things that can teach us a little bit more about our gardens and about ourselves. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.